to introducing Pete Dickson. He is a conservator at the National Records of Scotland. Some of you may remember him from the first steps caring for community archives when we did the archive tour. Well, he's responding now by looking at the handling and storage of photographic material. You can actually have access to his first presentation, which is available on the Scottish Council and Archives website through their YouTube channel. So Pete has been working for over 15 years at the National Records of Scotland. So he's handled a lot of photographs in his time, and I'm delighted that he's agreed to do a presentation today. So over to Pete. Thank you. Oh, Pete. Pete, I'm not hearing you. Pete?
It says Peter's on mute.
Yeah. Let's get Pete. Sorry about that. Let's see if we can help Pete. Peter? Peter?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Fantastic.
Hooray.
Hooray.
I'm now trying to get my content back up. Bear with.
Okay, I'm seeing lots of faces in front of me.
Okay, right, I'll just get straight on with the next slide. Okay, so I'll quickly go through this. Wash hands regularly, do not use hand lotions or creams, it says there. Also, once you've washed your hands, don't use any lotions or creams or moisturizers. Don't keep or consume food or drink in storerooms and research areas. Spillage of drink and spreading of crumbs is the issue here. Spilt liquids will damage your photographs, and crumbs will attract pests. Keep your work area clean and dust-free. Rather than using furniture polish, for instance, use a microfiber cloth which can be rinsed, dried and reused. Work in a clean, dust-free area. It's good practice to work on a clean sheet of paper. A roll of lining wallpaper is an acceptable low-cost option for this. Oh no, all my things are going upside down. My big fingers, that's what it is. Oh, here we are. Oh, it's just jumping about, Audrey. Right.
Are you on the right one?
Oh, now we've got Linda on the phone as well there. Right, wear gloves when handling photographs. White cotton or nitrile gloves are what we commonly use. Please be aware that wearing gloves does have the negative effect of reducing digital sensitivity, which means you'll have less feel. So please take extra care when wearing gloves. If you annotate on the photograph itself, only ever use a 2B pencil and use very light pressure, aiming only to mark close to the edges of the back, on the back, non-image side of the photograph. Bear in mind also that 2B pencil has a softer quality of graphite. So if you lean heavily with a 2B pencil, you'll get quite a thick mark, which will smudge easily and can offset deposits of graphite onto your table covering, which may then transfer to parts of your collection. This slide shows damage which can occur if care is not taken. This photograph was annotated on the back using a blue biro and not keeping the annotation to the edge of the photograph. You can just see the damage within the red circle thing. Only hold photographs by the edges. Don't touch the emulsion layer even when wearing gloves. Never submit your collection to the vagaries of a photocopy machine. There is a risk of mechanical damage as your photograph gets mangled in the rollers and pinchers, which are prevalent in photocopying machines. Keep all products such as tapes and labels, which include pressure-sensitive adhesives, away from your research areas when consulting your collection. These products are attracted like magnets to vulnerable surfaces, which will be damaged when they come into contact with these aggressive, sticky things. Oh, sorry. Don't use paper clips, rubber bands, pressure-sensitive tape, crocodile clips, or any other mechanical method of keeping collations of photographs together. These items will permanently damage your photographs. Don't brush or physically wipe dust or other detritus from the image layer of photographs. This will cause scoring and smearing of the detritus over the image. Also, do not blow on photographs as flakes of saliva can get on your image. My advice is to invest in and use a puffer, the wee grey bulb thing here, what photographers use when they're working and trying to remove dust from slides. Probably the most important consideration when planning storage of photographic collections is maintaining a consistent temperature and relative humidity within your chosen storeroom. It may be problematic trying to keep a storeroom within set parameters, but do what you can. If you find it's impossible to address environmental fluctuations within a preferred area, try to identify what the problem is. It's likely to be a building maintenance issue. It follows from this that monitoring your storeroom is essential in terms of keeping a check on the environment. It's also good practice to keep a record of environmental conditions. Regular checking of these conditions has the added benefit of keeping an eye and a nose on the storeroom. Thermal hygrometers and insect traps are available, and there are quite a few affordable models to choose from. A temperature range of 16 to 20 degrees centigrade with an RH 30 to 40% is desirable. Investing in a thermal hygrometer will allow you to monitor and keep a record of conditions in your store. It's a good habit to develop. Don't store collections on or against exterior walls, close to radiators, in attics, or in basements. This is because these areas either suffer from temperature and RH fluctuations or can be quite damp, inhospitable places for photographic collections. Keep a lookout for rodent poo. Also, investing in sticky insect traps will allow you to monitor which species are rampaging around your building storage area and take some action over that. Investing in monitoring equipment is a cost-effective preservation exercise. Most of these items can be purchased reasonably cheaply. Jumping on, avoid freshly decorated rooms. Fresh paint, new wood, varnished and unvarnished, will off gas for some weeks. Some woods keep off gassing for years. Do not use or store hazardous domestic chemical cleaners in an area dedicated to archive collections. Keep exposure to light to a minimum. Working under 50 lux is good practice, although this will be almost impossible to judge with the naked eye. Mobile phone apps can be had which will measure light in lux, although how accurate they are, I'm not sure. Probably better than the naked eye anyway. Try to avoid rooms with direct sunlight pouring through the windows. North-facing rooms provide best quality light when accessing photographic collections. Keep in mind that light degradation is cumulative. If you deal with archive collections and photographs regularly, consider fitting UV protected film to the windows in your chosen room. Carpets can hazard insects, pests, and dirt. Also, woolen carpets can off-gas compounds of sulfur, which will damage collections. Do not store or place photographs near photocopying machines. They emit ozone, which will again damage photographs. Keep your collections off the floor is always a good idea. Ideally, store your collections on adjustable metal shelving, which can be purchased at reasonable cost from most online stores, Screwfix, and Amazon, likes of that. Keep the bottom shelf a minimum of 10 centimetres off the floor, and avoid room with exposed pipes. Now onto packaging. First, consider only using products which have passed the PAT protocols. That is the photograph activity test, basically an indication of suitability for use. If resources are limited, try and at least use PAT-tested primary packaging. That's the enclosure right next to the image. Oops, pardon me, didn't need to do that. The list of questions on this slide speak to what sort of packaging will be best suited to the type of photograph being stored. Strips of negatives can be housed in strip-divided A4 transparent polyester sleeves, which are then clipped into a ring binder box file. Black and white and colour prints, which are consulted regularly, can be stored to allow access without the need to remove the photos from their protective enclosure. Annotations can be made on a piece of photo-safe paper and inserted behind the photograph. The divided polyester sheets can be ordered to suit a variety of image sizes. Again, the secondary protection is a ring binder box. This is a useful way of storing photographs if you're keeping a diverse range of sizes and you want them kept together in one box. You can buy these divided sheets to suit all common photograph sizes. Be aware that polyester and polyethylene pockets carry a static charge, which will attract loose or flaky portions of the image on your photograph. The loose elements are very likely to be dislodged and held by the static charge inherent in these pockets. So bear that in mind when you're choosing what to use. For photographs in good condition, however, polyester pockets are a versatile and useful product considering your collection's needs. They are available in a wide range of sizes and a wide or 3 or 4 different orientations of sealed edge. You can have them sealed on 3 edges, 2 parallel edges, 2 L edges, and 1 sealed edge, which is just like a folder. If you intend to store your collections in paper envelopes or 4-flap enclosures, consider that, for instance, envelopes with seams, when piled up, allow pressure points to develop. These pressure points may mark your collections, but when boxing your filled envelopes, please store them vertically. That will alleviate the pressure point problem. 4-flap enclosures, which you can see on the left of this slide, are an excellent way of storing fragile photographs. This enclosure allows the packaging to be removed from the piece rather than pulling a fragile piece from the packaging. Another advantage is that 4-flap enclosures, when closed, have 5 layers of photo-safe paper protecting it. Also, if required, a 4-flap enclosure can have a support of mount board cut to size and placed under the piece. When using paper enclosures, it's good practice to keep photographs of a similar size together and to fill boxes quite snugly. Do not overfill though. If you don't have enough material in the box, try and pad it out so that things aren't rattling around loose. Now, a quick word on buffered and unbuffered packaging. When you go onto various sites to order your preservation packaging, you'll be offered both. I would always tend to go for, specifically in terms of the collections I'm talking about at the moment, I would be going for unbuffered packaging. The reason behind this is that buffered packaging contains a reserve of calcium carbonate, and this may react with the proteins present in animal-derived photographic processes, such as albumin prints and gelatin. Box binders are preferred to plain folders and ring binders, as they provide better protection from the outside environment. I like these board boxes. because they allow gaseous agents of degradation to escape. And for that reason, I would also avoid impermeable enclosures, such as polypropylene boxes, metal boxes. And from a point of gassing, I would avoid wooden boxes. Even older wooden boxes may still be off-gassing. A secondary protection for the boxes to provide sort of frontline protection. So once your photographs are safely wrapped in a lovely piece of photosafe paper, these boxes then provide a second layer of protection. There's a wide variety of types and materials available. On the slide, you'll see three different types of box. The one on the right is called a drop front box, and it is used if you need to gain easy access to fragile photographs without having to sort of awkwardly fiddle them out of boxes. Right, down to a few cost-effective solutions. We worried about what not to use metal boxes again, avoiding wooden boxes. Secondary containers are quite easy to find on eBay and Amazon again. When you're looking for your primary protection, ensure they're past the PAT protocol. Secondary protection doesn't matter quite so much. You can probably go for acid-free rather than archival standard packaging. Now, I'm kind of aware that we're getting into 16.5 minutes now, Audrey. Do you want to go to questions at that, or will I carry on?
I would carry on for a few minutes because I didn't start bang on.
Okay.
I just let lots of people come in, so I would just carry on for another sort of 3 or 4 minutes.
Well, that's lovely. Thank you, Audrey.
Oh, great.
Again, try the usual online shops. I had a research on eBay and Amazon and found photo archive packaging materials, which from the point of view of primary packaging, I'd be unsure about. Again, they weren't mentioning that these materials that were photo activity tested. However, from the point of view of cost-effective stationary packaging, it is worth a look. Not all commercially available albums are bad. This image shows an album with polyester pockets hinged with paper. You've probably seen such, like they're quite old-fashioned, these ones. I'm not sure on the quality of the paper. I do know the film is polyester. If I was going to use one of these, I was in doubt about the quality of the paper, I'd slip in a piece of photosafe paper behind the image. Now, the next slide up shows us a so-called magnetic album. I've heard them called magnetic or sticky albums. It's basically a stiff leaf with an adhesive on it and a polyester film. In this case, it's a polyester film anyway. It's not always polyester, so it's worth inquiring about. Some people have these albums handed down through the years. I would avoid this. It's got an adhesive, and as you can see from this photograph, the brown staining around the edges is where the adhesive is degrading. So it's an adhesive and it's easily degrading, although this album here is probably around 40, 50 years old now, so it's little wonder it's degrading. Next slide up is just 4 good places to procure your preservation materials. Preservation Equipment Limited, for whom I have to thank for some of the images used. John Purcell, they're a paper supplier, but if you were to be buying, you can buy quite a lot of silver safe or such like photosafe papers from John Purcell at quite a reduced cost, but you will have to cut it and manipulate it to fit your collections yourself. The preservation equipment, CXD International and conservation resources will all provide made-to-measure resources. So that's my presentation, Audrey.
Thank you very much. Pete, if you want to stop sharing your screen with everyone, you can do.
I will do.
Just by the along the top bar, the box with the arrow. Just click on it.
Question of Eve. Oh, not just about muted myself again there. Hi.
I know.
Oh, hang on.
What I want to do is just ask if anyone has got a question for Pete. I'm thinking about maybe if you want to ask him specific questions about any of your collections. Maybe you've got a collection of black and white photographs or some glass plate negatives, or this is your opportunity. You can just raise your hand if you want, or you can put a question into the chat room as well, because I might start, Pete, if everyone can hear me, with some questions that have been sent to me prior to this meeting.
Okay.
And that is, we don't know what type of photographs we have in our collection. Is there anything we can do, a survey, to find out what we have in our collections? It's a little bit, so it might be sort of linked with their storage and handling, but do you have any sort of advice for them?
Yes, I had inserted a few slides which looked at trying to identify what you have in your collections, but I felt, having read through them, that it was a bit beyond the 15 minutes I had to put it out, so thanks for the question, Audrey. Basically, in terms of identifying the age, I think, of black and white photographs, various methods are used, one of which is checking out the fashions that are being worn by any people in the photograph. Of course, it may be an image of a stationary object, which won't be wearing any fashion items at all. I would say, though, that when you're surveying your collections, I would tend to concentrate on making sure, if you've got older negatives, for instance, making sure that those negatives aren't degrading and off-gassing agents of degradation, which will have a deleterious effect on prints. So if, for instance, you can identify cellulose acetate negatives, they're better housed separately and not in polyester or other film substance enclosures. I would say they're better housed in silver safe paper enclosures specifically made for negatives. And this is so that as the negatives are off-gassing, the gases they are off-gassing are permeating out of the packaging.
That's great, thank you. We've got a question from Ian Copeland who'd like to ask you his question himself. So over to you, Ian, you've unmuted yourself.
Thank you, Audrey. Good morning, Pete.
Good morning.
I acquired a number of interesting local glass plate negatives off eBay, which we're very keen to preserve. I just wonder what recommendations you have for best storage of these.
Okay, glass plate negatives, I would tend to store, I would buy the proprietary boxes from one of the suppliers on the list, wrap them in a 4-flap enclosure made of silver safe paper and store them vertically between, well, generally what we would be doing in the studio is storing them between thin pieces of foam, inert foam, of which I forget the name offhand.
Right.
What's that foam we use again, Audrey? Anywho, it'll come back to me. But yes, that's how I would tend to store them. You can buy everything you need from the, for example, preservation equipment. So you buy a box, it will come with, you can order it to come with the foam inserts to keep your glass plates separated from each other and safe, and they will be stored vertically within that box.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thanks, Ian, for that. If you could just...
I just remembered the name, plastizote foam. That's the name of the stuff. It's an inert foam, which doesn't off gas and cause further problems.
Right.
Sorry.
No, great. I was going to say, Ian, if you could mute yourself again, that's great. Thank you. We have a question from Gillian. I don't know if she'd like to ask you the question herself. If, Gillian, you can just unmute yourself. If you aren't going to, I will just ask your question then, Gillian.
Yeah, I'm here. I was struggling for the buttons there. Yeah, good morning. If you've got a really small budget and not a massive collection, but you can just buy one or two things for your collection, what would you recommend? Do I go for paper that I can chop up and make envelopes? Do I go for do I go for boxes because they're strong? It's a little budget, it's less than 500, it's more like 100. What would I be best doing, do you think?
Okay, first off, I would say buy a thermal hygrometer. And that will allow you to keep a close look at the temperature and the RH which your collection is stored in, and keep a note, keep a record. These can be purchased for around £10 and have a minimum maximum setting. So regardless of whether you're present, you'll get to see what the minimum maximum temperature and RH was. Further to that, when it comes to actual packaging, I would personally, I would probably buy paper from John Purcell if you're able to get an amount of paper which suits your budget, because it may be you'll only sell a ream for, you know, pick up your whole budget, I think, just about. But concentrate on getting the best quality packaging that fits closest to your images, to your photographs. So you want the photograph wrapped in a photo-safe paper, and then if you're choosing a box, you can probably get acid-free boxes from Amazon or eBay or any of the other suppliers, which may not be to an archival standard, but at least they're acid-free and it's a good second option. And it's quite an acceptable method of storing your photographs. But keep the best quality closest to the image and the cheapest quality furthest away from the image. So primary wrappers, spend the money on them. Secondary enclosures, you can find bargains. Even a shoebox is better than nothing, I have to say. Maybe I shouldn't say it, but anything which provides a barrier to, for instance, imagine if a pipe burst and it was spushing water all over your collection, then they'll shed off a box to a certain extent before damaging the contents of the box. So anything is better than nothing almost. Again, I would stay away from impervious containers because they don't allow gases of degradation which build up to escape. I mean, photographs are particularly vulnerable parts of any archive. They will degrade even in the dark, even in the best conditions you can find, they'll continue to degrade. So it's just a question of doing the best that you can, and that involves spending the most money closest to the photograph itself. Is that clear? Or?
That is brilliant. Thank you. Most money closest to the photo. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's fab.
Okay.
And if it's paper, I can cut and fold my own envelopes and not be trying to make things fit. That's lovely. Really, really helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
That's great, Pete. We have another question from Ruth Brown. Ruth, if you'd like to ask Pete your question, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, good morning, Pete. Going back to those old-fashioned sticky photograph albums, what's best practice if you're given one of those? Do you leave them in there? Do you take them out? Should we do something before we store them properly, or what's the best practice for that?
Best practice would be if you can easily get the photograph out, and I say easily, mostly after 40 years, the adhesive has given up altogether and the photographs are falling out, and that's fine. Remove them and package safely. If they're stuck fast, I would recommend seeking the advice of a conservator, because they can and will tear. And even if they're only tearing the backside of the image, that leads to further problems. So if they're stuck fast, seek advice. If they're falling out, repackage. And you can try, if they come up just with a little tickle, maybe I'm overreaching the advice here, but yeah, that's fine. But if they are, as I say, stuck fast, get advice.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Pete, could you tell us a little more of a little tickle, please, what that means?
Yeah, a little tickle. Basically, if you peel back the polyester film, and you can just get a fingernail or a very thin spatula under the photograph, and it lifts at that point, that's a little tickle to me. If you have to use any further force or shove a spatula any further in than just half an inch or so, then at that point I would say that's stuck fast. If it's not moving by then, it's not going to move, and you're in danger of leaving some of the photograph behind on the sticky, stiff leaf.
Great. One question I just maybe wanted to ask, because people have been asking me about supplies for materials. Would it be a good idea for people to join together and maybe buy things?
I think that's a great idea. Yeah, that's been done successfully in quite a few places that I'm aware of. If there are, how many people are looking at this? I can't quite make it out. But if you were all to perhaps purchase for within your region, perhaps the chap from Benbecula, and maybe if there's a colleague up in Stornoway were to all purchase stuff together, it would be quite easily distributed as required. So yes, I would say there is a power to your elbow when buying together. I think it's the administrative side of that would be the tricky bit. You'd want somebody to do the ordering and dispatching that is on top of these kind of things. But definitely worth a try. Yeah.
I was going to say, when we did the archive tour, Pete, and you were presenting on caring for general collections, you concentrated on paper. I do think that the NRAS maybe could help with supplies of some materials. Is that still the case? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I'm not up to date with that, I'm afraid, Audrey.
All right.
It's certainly worth. I'll find out.
Okay, that would be really helpful if people could then order stuff through them. So it might be worthwhile. Can people email you, Pete? Be happy to?
Yes, I'm happy for my email to go out.
Shall I can put it on the chat room. But yes. Before I put your email on the chat room, I might actually ask Carla to ask her question. If you'd like to unmute yourself, Carla, please feel free to ask Pete.
Thank you. Hello, Pete. Good morning to you.
Hi.
Hi, I'm phoning from Perth. I
Oh.
just wondered, hello, I just wondered how you go about indexing photographs. I'm just seeing a whole cupboard and it's a mix of these albums, boxes and everything. And I just wondered how to index, and is there a template? Do you go by date, person in the photograph, location? I just don't know how to go about it.
Now, indexing. That's kind of more down the side that an archivist might better answer. My feeling is that if it was myself looking at your situation, I would probably start off surveying rather than indexing, if I may call it surveying, which I'm more familiar with. But can you amounts to collating information about your photographs, regardless whether it's indexing or surveying. If I was surveying, I would survey into age and type of photograph. So I would separate out black and whites from colour prints. I would separate all my negatives. Obviously, you want to keep a link between prints and negatives, but I would try and again store the negatives separately from the prints, specifically in terms of negative degrading will add to the degradation of prints. So I'd put down that line.
Okay.
However, as to actually indexing, well, sorry, it's a wee bit out with my area of expertise.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry I couldn't
That's okay.
provide a better answer.
I was going to say, Carla, just to let you know that we're doing part of this series, we are actually looking at cataloguing of photographs. So I think it's probably booked up, but there will be a recording of it. And so look out for that, because it actually specifically looks at how to catalogue a photograph collection, taking into account all the different types. But from a conservation point of view, I think what you want to try and do is put groups of photographs together that are like one another. So I'm just really emphasising what Pete said. So your glass plate negatives should be all together. You wouldn't say have a glass plate next to a black and white gelatin print. It would make sense just from that storage point of view. Now we have someone who's actually asked about a spreadsheet for indexing, and yes, I think that will come up. It's not something probably Pete does in conservation. He creates spreadsheets, but it's more to do with the condition of an object rather than cataloguing it.
Yeah.
So it's when a conservator works very closely with the archivist. The archivist is actually providing all the information about the object, whereas a conservator is going to be able to tell you how to look after and preserve your photograph for the future as well. So it's that working, it's that sort of team building. And as I say, that's going to be covered a bit later on in another one of our sessions. So I'm not seeing any more questions, and I am aware that we are trying to keep to time because we are meant to be sort of doing this during our morning coffee break. So I don't want to keep you here for absolutely ever. Is there any more questions?
Could I ask a question?
Yes, please. Yes, I can see your hand up. Yes, please do.
I apologise. I had trouble getting in. Is it possible to see a recording of this? Because I'm so sorry to have missed it.
Yes, it is. We are recording all the sessions and we will be making it available through the Scottish Council and Archives website. I don't know if you follow Twitter, but we have got a Twitter account just for community archives. It's at @CArchivesScot. I'll put it in the chat room. I highly recommend you follow it if you can, and you'll find out about all the events that are coming up and the training as well.
Good. If anybody has any further questions, don't hesitate to email me. I think my email address is going out to you all, so feel free to get in touch.
Great. That is great. I'm not seeing any more hands up, and I'm not seeing anything else in the chat room. So at this point, I'm going to say thank you very much for joining us today. We've not used Teams on this platform before. We usually use Zoom. I have a feeling I might be going back to Zoom. It's a lot easier. But we'll see how it goes. Robert has been doing a fantastic job in the background. But otherwise, I just want to say thanks for coming. I'm going to be sending out a survey. I'd really appreciate if you fill it in, and then we can actually do the sort of training and events that you want to take part in. So thanks very much. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye now.